All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to. All right, there's some enthusiasm. Our first speaker this morning will be Mandy Politi. She is an SEO strategist with a strong background in content and technical SEO, international experience, and MSc in applied linguistics from the University of Edinburgh. Passionate about using a linguistic approach in search engine optimization. Put your hands together for Mandy.
Well, okay, thank you. Good. Well, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how to use linguistics to create content that ranks. Let me introduce myself a little bit more. So my name is Mandy. I'm a senior SEO strategist at Optids. Optids is a Houston-based digital marketing agency. I hold a bachelor's in philology, classical studies, and linguistics from the National University of Athens in Greece, which is basically ancient Greek, modern Greek, Latin, all this sort of stuff. And I also hold a master's of science in applied linguistics from the University of Edinburgh. I really, truly love my job. I really love everything about SEO. What I like the most is that we spend all this time and effort to learn how to do it well. And then by the time we learn how to do it, Google basically rolls a new algorithm update and boom, you have to start over. You have to learn everything again. When I started in the industry, it was actually a little challenging for me, mostly because, well, what I was getting a lot was, are you sure you can do SEO if you're not a native speaker? I learned how to do SEO back when I was living in the UK. And something else that I come across a lot is, how is your degree relevant? Like, how is linguistics relevant to SEO? But the reality is, it is actually really relevant because linguistics basically focuses on the study of natural language, of the language of like how we use language to communicate, how we use language to search, and how basically how we can do things with the words. And this is really relevant to SEO because exactly this is what we're doing. We spend our days optimizing with keywords, trying to figure out what is the right search intent, stuff like that. Now, let's go on with users, search engines, and language. People, like I said, use language to communicate, to convey messages and search for information. But then how do search engines interact with language? Basically, they need to understand language and they use algorithms to do so. These algorithms, they learn how users use basically language to search, how to understand search intent, and then match relevant search results, how to stay on top of what is relevant. Now, this is a tricky one because what is relevant changes over time, not only on the search results, but also on the language. So what we meant with the same words or the same sentences like 10 years ago, it's not the same like now. How to identify meaning in context. This is a very important one. How to understand words, their derivatives, the slang, misspelled words. Basically, think of the last Google search you did. Like, you don't really spend time to write the whole sentence. You're not going to say how to do X, Y, Z. You will probably just write something real quick. You might change the structure, the way that it feels more natural to you. Google has evolved so well that they can predict what you want to say, even if what you write makes absolutely no sense. Like, actually, I did a Google search earlier today, and I saw, like, did you mean this? It was, I did the wrong preposition, like an into, something like that. In English, it never makes sense. What is the right preposition to use? Like, there's no rule to follow, so you really need to memorize it. So I did this Google search, and Google was good enough to tell me, did you mean that instead? So I was like, that's a good example of how good they have become understanding what we want to say with what we type, basically. And all of that, in the end of the day, is how to rank content that answers the user's questions the best, because this is what Google wants to do. They want to serve the best related content that answers the questions of the users. Today, what we're going to explore basically is, why is linguistics relevant to SEO? How can the different levels of linguistic analysis help us understand how users use language to search for information, and how search engines understand these user queries to serve you with the best results? And finally, why AI won't be replacing content writing just yet. I know there's a lot of discussion about they are going to do it. No, they're not going to do it. It's difficult to generate content. I think that the human that is going to be there, but just not yet. You still need the humans to review. You still need the humans to, not only about the information accuracy, but also for the actual content to make it be first page worthy, let's say, and to actually make it be useful for the user, which is like what we should be doing and should be aiming at as SEO experts. The key takeaways are going to be what it is that makes content first page worthy, how can we use this linguistic approach to create good content, and what it is that makes ChatGPT, Bard, and the rest basically like children that they're learning now how to speak. And they're learning fast. They're not there yet, but they're learning fast. And what does that mean for the future of our industry? By the way, you can stop me at any point if you want to ask questions. So what is linguistics? Linguistics, a common misconception is that it's about learning languages. It does help if you have studied linguistics to learn different languages, but it's not about that. Linguistics is actually the scientific study of language. It is called a scientific study because it entails a comprehensive, systematic, objective, and precise analysis of all aspects of language, particularly its nature and structure. Now, the interesting thing here is that the study of language is not one-dimensional. It has several different levels of analysis. Let's see them one by one. These are the main ones. There are others that are like a little bit more wide, but these are the main ones that linguists study. And all of them are relevant to SEO and optimization. The most important ones and the most relevant ones that we're going to see today are morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, and discourse analysis. But other than that, we have like historical linguistics, which studies the language evolution and change over time. Phonetics, which is speech sounds, phonology, sound systems, patterns and changes again over time. Morphology, which studies the structure of words. Syntax, the structure of sentences. That has nothing to do with the grammar that we're learning back in the school. And then we have semantics that studied meaning, entities, like we saw yesterday in another presentation. Pragmatics, the use of language in context and real life. Discourse analysis, which is my specialization, study of text spoken and written. Social linguistics, which is the language in social context and how it's being used in everyday communication, but with the social aspect of it. And finally, computational linguistics, which focuses on natural language processing. This is a really important one because basically it focuses on how computers understand the human language. And this is it's a very difficult field, and it's something that is heavily used from Google when they're trying to understand it. It's the algorithms on how to basically predict what you want to say with every search query that you type on the Google box. Now we're going to see the most relevant ones one by one, starting from morphology. Morphology, like we said, is the study of words, how they're formed, relationships with other words, their structure. Now, as you can see in the example I have over there, the word independently, you have different elements that all together they work to create this word. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of the academic analysis of how this works together to create the word and the meaning. But basically for us, think about it as the verb variations like eat, eats, eating, ate, singular or plural words, word forms like cake, cakes. Why is that relevant to us? Think of the different search results that these variations can trigger. Like cake, I don't even have to Google it. I know straight away that it's going to bring like mixed results, but mainly on the top is going to be recipes. But then if you type cakes, you know straight away that's going to probably be commercial/transactional search results. It's going to probably be about how to buy birthday cakes or gluten-free cakes or wedding cakes near you, something like that. So just by adding an S at the end of the word, like just by developing the word a little different and using a variation, Google is good enough to predict what you might mean with this change, and they can serve you different results. I think the one that I have seen the most is the singular plural, but now I'm also seeing how different verb variations might actually trigger different results. Like try to type shoe and try to type shoes. Again, it's going to bring completely different search results. Then moving on to syntax. Syntax is basically about how words are structured to form grammatical sentences. You see here in the example, we have like article, noun, they form together a noun phrase, and you have verb, a noun phrase, and then these together, they form the verb phrase, and this is forming a sentence. This is called a grammar tree. It's actually very complicated to analyze sentences like that. The idea again here and why this is relevant to us is how do users and search engines understand grammatical sentences? Now, the thing here, the tricky part here is grammatically correct doesn't always mean that it's going to make sense. So I have two examples here. The first example is C likes to optimize websites. That's me. So basically here it's grammatically correct and it makes perfect sense. Like you understand what I want to say. Now we have this sentence, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. This is a sentence that was created by Noam Chomsky. He is considered to be like the father of modern linguistics. He composed this sentence back in 1957 on syntactic structures. He wanted to showcase how grammatically correct can sometimes just absolutely make no sense. Like it can be semantically nonsensical. So the idea again is, how do search engines, I mean, as users, like native speakers, speakers of different languages like me, we don't really, if you command the language well enough, you don't even think about it. You don't even think that there is a structure there. There is some grammatical rules. You create sentences that most likely make sense. If they don't make sense, sometimes you just add additional context, you explain it. But how do search engines understand what is a grammatically correct sentence? And how do they understand what you want to say with it? Like, how do they assign meaning? How is it that the algorithm understands what I say when I say C likes to optimize websites? And how can the algorithm again understand that colorless green ideas sleep furiously makes no sense? So again, there's a lot of science behind of it. There's a lot of science on trying to teach the algorithm to understand grammatically correct phrases, and phrases that also that are grammatically correct but also make sense. Because if not, then how is it? Is it just like words put in an order, or how do you assign the meaning? And that takes us to the next one, which is the one that I think is the most relevant, the two most relevant fields of linguistics for SEO. It's semantics and pragmatics. These two, I like having them together because they usually go hand in hand. Semantics is about understanding the meaning behind words and sentences. This is a really tricky field to study because the meaning changes a lot over time, and it changes. Think about it like in English. Like you have US English, you have British English. Say chips, crisps, French fries. It's different. Like I'm going to get something completely different if I ask for that in the UK, and completely different if I ask for that here in the US. So it's the same word, but it has a completely different meaning based on cultural aspects, history of the country, speakers. The same goes for Spanish as well. And then we have pragmatics, which is the contextual cues. Basically, it's how do we understand meaning in sentences, such as it's cold in here. Like if I say it's cold in here, what exactly am I trying to achieve? Like in a everyday kind of interaction between human beings, you would be able to understand what I'm trying to achieve with this sentence just because of the situational context. So this room doesn't have any windows, so probably I might want that someone turns off the AC. If I say it to my friend and colleague, Maddie, who's sitting over there, it's not like she cannot do anything about that. She cannot really go and turn off the AC. So I'm probably just complaining. I'm probably not explaining, I'm not expecting her to take any action. But if I go to the organizer of the conference, I might actually be saying that because I'm expecting her to actually go and turn off the AC. Again, it's the context. So it's meaning in context. It's never just meaning. It's never just context. They need to be together. It's the same thing like with entities, that you can have the entities, like, are you going to understand it if you have entities without context? Like if you have a noun or a paragraph without the nouns, like how can you understand what you're trying to say? These things are weaved together. Google is very interested in that. And we can see that, think about the updates, Hummingbird in 2013, that focused on understanding what users really mean with specific search queries, which is basically the search intent. Like if I type shoes, I'm straight away going to see transactional commercial search results. Like Google, I don't even need to say buy. I don't even say where to buy. I don't need to add a verb. I don't need to say near me. Google is smart enough now to understand the search intent behind this very simple word is I'm trying to buy. Probably I want some online stores, like some e-commerce websites, or I want to go somewhere near me in a store. Again, these things, if you think about that now, they sound self-explanatory for like humans, because we speak and we don't think about this, but try to put that into perspective of how do search engines understand these things? Like what is it that makes like the algorithm to be able to understand what you mean just by a single word and serve you with actual good results? Like my idea is that like you click, and then with all these clicks that happen every day, like it learns, and with probabilities it works on what is it that you are most likely expecting to see. And then if you start clicking in unexpected results, you see that the second search changes. So it's like Instagram, more or less, that if you go to the to different images on your scroll, you're going to go into a different rabbit hole, how I like to call it. Like you go into a different route of different results, and they might just change, and you start from something and you end up something else. Again, like YouTube, that you might start looking for a recipe and then end up looking about something like weird or whatever, like that you didn't even start thinking of. And then we have the BERT algorithm update. That's my favorite, actually, because it focused a lot back in 2019. It focused on improving language understanding for the conversational search terms. there is a conversation when you type a search query on Google. Like, although it's not real time and real life, you assume that by typing a query, it's like a question and you're expecting an answer to this question. So basically, this is a conversation happening there. And this is a very important aspect of linguistics as well, assuming that all kind of communication, written, spoken, a piece of text that someone is reading is conversational. And it focused a lot in prepositions, like, for example, how modifiers like for, in, to might change the search intent and what you're expecting to find. Search term structure, how you structure the words. This is like a particularly interesting if you say Houston slab leak detection or slab leak detection Houston. So these things actually bring different results. They have different search volumes. Again, with the BERT algorithm update, Google was trying to better understand if this has a correlation of what you're expecting to see versus what you are typing, in the sense of how like you're using the structure of the search terms. Then you have words that come before and after. This is very useful and interesting because it's all about the context. It's all about, like, if you type Lily, what do you want? What are you looking for? What are you expecting to see? Is it going to be a flower or is it going to be a name? Are you trying to see what it means, the origins, the etymology, or what? A very interesting one about this is that back in the UK, I had the client in the fast fashion industry. So yeah, back in the UK, I had this client in the fast fashion industry. They were selling yellow jackets, and we were trying to optimize for this term. But if you type yellow jackets in the UK, actually, I think if you type yellow jackets anywhere, I think in the US as well, in Mexico, it brings up the bees. It doesn't bring the actual yellow jackets. So we've been trying to get this client to rank for yellow jackets. It was like the highlight of the season. It was like they want to promote it. It was impossible. It was not the right search intent. For some reason, Google thought that yellow jackets, it was literally just the bees. Like it wouldn't bring up the relevant result. Yeah, and now, like a couple of years ago, there's this show, the Yellow Jacket show, and this is like it's a TV show. So again, Google thinks that when you're looking for yellow jackets, you are basically looking for that. But now, if you start typing relevant to clothes queries and then you type yellow jackets, then the result changes. So again, how does Google understand that? It's easy for us human beings to consider and like conceptualize it, but try to teach an algorithm to understand this, especially when language has all of these different levels of analysis, and the meaning of every search query only makes sense when it's grammatically correct and when it has the right context. It's a lot of different factors that play here in order to understand. Yes?
You mentioned a search term which I'm familiar with too, is like Houston slab leak or slab leak Houston.
Uh-huh.
I think as SEOs, we sometimes get caught up in the minutia that, I need to put this keyword in my text or into what have you, before you page Houston slab leak. Well, how do people, sometimes we forget how people think when they're searching.
Exactly.
There's a search intent behind that. So explain to us the difference between like search intent for Houston slab leak versus slab leak Houston. How is that?
I mean, to do that, I actually need to go to do a Google search and see what comes up exactly for this term right now. But basically, for me, is that like for this example, if you say Houston slab leak detection, like my understanding is that you might be looking for like how I feel it, like because I am optimizing also for a lot of plumbing websites in Houston. Like what I've seen is that it brings up results that are a little bit more informational in terms of where to find or how or cost or installation. Whereas if you type slab leak detection Houston, which you are skipping the preposition here, but it's like a strong indicator of like a local search. It might actually bring like a local pack. It might bring a little bit more of get to book now. So I think it changes a little bit on for me, when I try to optimize, I don't go by the keyword. I go by manual research. Like I truly believe that no tool will ever tell you what you have to optimize better than Google itself. Like I do, like I go into SEO rabbit holes and I check search results for all the keywords. Like I do a lot of that. And then I might validate it with tools for search volumes, etc. But for these kind of things, you get a really good understanding if you do the search. For my experience, if you put Houston, like the modifier of local search in front, it brings a little bit more like, let's say 60-40 of informational results as well. Like more about cost and installations or cost and how, etc. Whereas if you put it in the end, it's more local results, like transactional/commercial, like actually book the service. But this also changes, and it changes also from my experience, from what the competitors are optimizing for. And what the users are basically clicking, like optimizing for this plumbing website 2 years ago, it's completely different than optimizing it now. And it's not only because of the algorithm updates, it's because the search intent is changing. The same way, for example, that now I'm seeing that the industry is changing a little bit more towards consolidation of services like installation and replacement or replacement and repair. It's not about like individual pages anymore, and you can see this shift. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Amazing.
What I took from that is figure out what Google is showing you,
Mhm.
and you might say, oh yeah, that's informational, but maybe the client wants to rank number one for useful slab leak. That's informational. You really want to rank number one for slab leak useful.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so it's, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then you will go to the client and we say that this is the right thing, this is what we recommend, and then we take it from there, basically. So search engines, basically this sums it up that they have evolved really well to understand natural language, as well as the syntax, the semantics, and the pragmatics of it. So these are the most important ones. And they do that because they're trying to match the search queries with results that are most likely going to meet the user's needs and expectations. But like I said, it takes a lot of like science behind of it to try to put all of this together, feed it into an algorithm, and then the algorithm can understand and predict what it is that you are trying to achieve. Here I have actually an example of a slab leak detection search. I have for this I did this screenshot like 2-3 weeks ago, and as you can see, the query is slab leak detection. I didn't include any modifiers. I didn't include services. I didn't include Houston. I didn't include near me. So me, naturally, I would assume that if someone would type like slab leak detection, they are probably looking for a service. They're probably looking to get like a plumber in. But then the search results, the top 4 or 5 search results here, they are purely informational. And I see that there is a people also ask box really, really like high on the search results. For me, this is a very strong indicator that the keyword, the term is heavily informational. So I know, for example, that with this, I need to be very wise on what kind of page I'm going to target it with and how I'm going to, how I need to change it to help the blog post that I'm going to probably create about it versus the service page to work together well without competing for the right search intent. And then if you go through all of this, you see clear patterns on the word level of semantically relevant words that are most likely going to appear near this search term. You have signs, evidence, indication. Now, look here how these words are really like, they're different, they're synonyms, but Google has successfully identified like that they basically mean the same thing, the same entity, the same topic of figuring out what is going on. Like, how can you find that you have this issue at your plumbing, at your home plumbing problems? Then you have find, detect, identify, fix. You have how, guide, tips. All these are words that I took from the search results. Running, water, sound. The pattern is very clear on what Google expects to see, like for these terms, slab leak detection. And the pattern is very clear on what all these top results are targeting. Like you see that even if it's different words, you can see that it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same topics. For example, find, detect, and identify. 3 different verbs, but they mean the same thing. It's basically a how-to. And then you have how, guide, and tips. And then take now this and put it into the paragraph level. If you click on all of these search results, they actually have the same kind of structure on the content that takes us here. They try to map this intent of the words into context, which is basically the page that you are creating, the blog posts that are performing and they're ranking over there on the first page of Google. You have the problem definition, you have the problem, how the problem is being caused, how to find the problem, who to call, which is the solution, how the solution works, like what is the plumber going to do, how much time is it going to take, the cost, and then a CTA to get the solution, like call now and get a plumber straight away to your place. And then take that into language. Is what is a slab leak? How does it happen? Signs you have a slab leak. When should you call a plumber? Is it a do-it-yourself solution? How plumbers detect and fix slab leaks, etc. So again, you get the words, you get this clear pattern of repetition, or even if it's different, you can still see the pattern. And that's why I think that manual research is very important, because although seemingly these words are different, you can still see that they are part of the same topic or cluster. And then you get that and you like extend it into the paragraph content level and you add the context. And then this is how you end up ranking over there. You're using the terms that Google most likely is going to predict that you should have on your blog for the users to be satisfied, because what they're looking is, how can I know that this is happening? How do I know that I have a slab leak? What can I do for it? And again, remember the BERT update, we have what, how. These prepositions is the modifiers, basically, is what adds the context and the structure on our content. Then the next part is discourse analysis and text. Text linguistics is a branch of discourse analysis that studies text as a communication system. It goes beyond grammar in general, or single sentences and words, and it looks more over the text, like the content. It's about the form of text, its setting, assuming that there is interaction through the context, and communication between the author and the addressee, which in this case is the user and the writer. Again, even if it's not real time and real life communication, you assume that your reader is asking you a question and you are discussing with this person. And again, Google, this is how they also say it, it's conversational, because every search query is basically a question that our content, the results are trying to answer. Now, when you analyze text, there are two things that you need to focus on. The first is the text type. We have narrative, descriptive, argumentative, instructive, comparison. So for example, in, let's say, narrative, history of energy deregulation in the US. Like you're expecting, by putting the content that you create into a framework, you straight away know what should be expected to be found by a user in this piece of content. For example, in the history of energy deregulation in the US, straight away, even without even thinking about it, like I am expecting that if I see this result and like I click on it, what I'm going to expect to find is like a header, like a title, an introduction, and then headers with years. Like back in the 80s, I don't know when it started, like in the US, but like back in the 80s, back in the 90s, like now, what is going on? So by putting like discourse analysis basically, and how you can use that to when you create content, is that like put it into a framework of what is expected to be included and to be found by a user when I create different types of text. Like for example, a product or a service guide. Like it sounds again self-explanatory, but it helps you to make sure that you include all the information that you need to include to make sure that your topic is covered correctly. So for example, product or service guides, you have like product features, or you have like costs or guarantee, stuff like that. Then argumentative, why not do this and do something else? You expect to see like a comparison sort of structure on your content. And then we have structure. About the structure it's the most difficult thing to achieve, I think, when it comes to writing content. And this is where I'm spending a lot of time trying to teach like writers how to tick all these boxes. You have cohesion, which is how text components are connected within a sequence. You have coherence, how concepts and relations are linked to achieve consistency. Like, for example, cause and effect. Like, if you put rice on your garbage disposal yesterday, today you're probably going to end up with a broken garbage disposal. But again, how do you say, like, how do you visualize that in a piece of content? Like, how do you create this kind of cause and effect through words? And how do the algorithms understand when they're trying, for example, to pull a feature snippet out of your content to use it as a paragraph on the search results? Then intentionality, the goal the text producer is trying to achieve through the text. Like, what is it that you want to do? Like, to inform, to sell, which again traces back to the search intent. Acceptability, the text addressee, the reader, accepts the text is useful and or relevant to what they're looking for. Informativity, the extent to which the contents of text are already known to the addressee. Situationality, what makes the text actually relevant to the topic. And intertextuality, understanding text based upon knowledge of previously encountered text. And now, how is this all relevant to SEO? Cohesion and coherence is basically content that makes sense. Like, I've seen a lot of writers creating content. Like, it sounds really easy, but it's actually not, because like, how many times have you reviewed content from writers, and then by the time that you finish like reading 2 paragraphs, you're like, I have no idea what he's trying to say here. Like what is the point? Like what? Like, and then I need to go back and I need to say to the writer, can you please summarize this? Can you please make it more direct on the answer and all that? Then you have intentionality, informational blog posts, transactional service page, so on. Acceptability is the reader accepts that you are an expert, an authority on your vertical, on your industry, and that's why they're going to spend their time to actually read your content. So you need to, again, make sure that, do I have these signals? Have I included enough information? Or how does the user know, like, why do they decide to spend time reading your article and not some, like the previous or the next search results? Informativity, this is more about user personas and audience, like assuming the extent of language. Like, think about a beginner's guide to home plumbing maintenance versus design controls for your medical device. Like another issue I found, like for example with writers, is that sometimes they include like we do like a piece of content that's more for advanced an advanced audience, and they're going to include like something very top level, like what is a design control or what is a medical device. And I'm like, this person who is going to read that, they already have a medical device. Probably they developed it. So they're looking to take it to the next step. They're looking to buy software or whatever. So again, sometimes you need to consider like, is it relevant? Like, do I assume the right extent of knowledge when I create content and when I give the brief to the writer? Situationality, which is relevant content to give a search term topic. Again, search intent, is it like relevant to what you're trying to rank for, and is it answering the questions? And finally, intertextuality. This one, I like thinking about this as links, internal and backlinks, like how people end up to your content. But it's also about if they have read something before and now they're looking for more information. So you still need to consider about that. And then a text example. I really don't like this text. I optimized it since then, but still, like I say it and it annoys me that it was like this. So what can I do to be prepared for the next power outage? Like if you read that, I put in red the relevant content and then in green the kind of relevant content, but this is not even relevant because it does give a solution at the end. Like it says, we knew that the weather is coming, like the frigid weather is coming. Everyone was focusing more on protecting plumbing instead of like checking out the lights or the backup power. Then it goes on a little bit of history about Houston, like how you have like significant power failures in the past. And then it says in the end, like after 2 paragraphs, aside from stocking essentials, you also need to prepare yourself for a power outage. This is what you need to be doing. So you spend 2 paragraphs of content when you don't have space or the attention of a user, because now users basically have the attention like span of a goldfish. Like they literally, if they stay 10 seconds on your blog, you're lucky. Like they just go see another notification and they go somewhere else. So you have 2 paragraphs, but they are so generic. Like, is it cohesive? They make sense, but if you see it like in like a little bit more from with perspective, like it doesn't really make sense because you have this header, but you think that you're going to figure out how to be prepared, and then you have 2 paragraphs of irrelevant content. Then is it coherent? Absolutely not. Like the subsequent paragraph doesn't really answer the question. You have to read through a lot of content. Is it intentional? Like the goal of explaining what one can do to be prepared failed, then is it acceptable? Like, is the user going to find what to do? No, they need to scroll through like a lot of content, and nobody's going to do that in 2023. And then informativity, yeah, I mean, this passes because Houston homeowners, they know about the freeze and the power outage event, so they can put it into the right perspective. Situationality, yes, it is relevant to Houston audiences because this article was trying to target Houston audiences. And then intertextuality, I mean, probably passes. We don't know if they came from another link, if they read something else. Again, every word counts. Like we don't want to do that. Like you need to make sure that everything that you put there, like the way that you use the language to answer the questions is very specific and spot on. Like you don't want to, or at least you put a different header to create a different structure. Coming down to that, then how to use all of that to create content. You have like the primary keyword that, okay, it helps if you put it in the right spots, and then targeting secondary and tertiary terms. But in the end, it's all about 2 things. It's semantics, probabilities, and context, and then structure. Let's see them one by one. So semantics, probabilities, and context is about thinking about it like high probabilities to find specific words and keywords around the topic. So you have nouns, verbs, adjectives, synonyms, word derivations, acronyms, other relevant words. And then you create this word cloud that basically adds relevance and positions the website within the right context. And it makes it easier for search engines and users to understand what is it that you are trying to say with your article, like, and if it deserves to be on the first page of Google because it answers successfully the user question. Now, how to do that? The first thing is truly go and check the search results to gather all the semantically relevant terms, like I showed you before. Again, I never start my search with it all. I literally go to Google. Like I Google it and I try to analyze what comes up. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out like what are the patterns, what it is that it's semantically relevant, and I try to see beyond different words. Like it doesn't matter if it's a different word, if it actually matches the right search intent and it falls into the right group of semantically relevant keywords. Pay attention to what is bold, because this is the best way for Google. Like it's the best way to understand what Google values more and what it's expected to be included in your website and in your blog. And then if there's a meta description that automatically generated by Google, check what terms it pulled from this specific blog. Because again, that's the best way to see what Google values the most. on the kind of semantically relevant words that you have to also include at your content. So we have dog flooring, polished concrete, flooring choice for dog, indestructible. These are terms that for me, I need to include them. I mean, of course, not copying, but I need to include them. Like I take a note of it and then I try to see how I can naturally fit them. And this is like my golden rule, the 80-20. 80% use what you find on the search results, and 20% use something that's like new terms that are not found on the first page of Google. For this, I check second and third page results. I check keyword variations of the main primary term. And what I do, if you're lucky enough to speak another language, I also do searches in different languages. Like I might do in Greek and in Spanish, because actually, although what is expected to see, like what different search results in different countries, first of all, some are more advanced than others. Two, it's different things that you're expecting to see if you are a Spanish like a speaker or a Greek speaker or an English speaker or whatever. But sometimes you see like different things, like different aspects of the topic that you cannot find if you analyze the first page results, basically of one specific language. Like if you type slap lead detection in Spanish and in the US search results, like in English, you're going to see completely different results. And in terms of informational blog posts, different concerns you might find that the users in Mexico, for example, are encountering than in the US. So again, you don't want to copy or to use things that probably don't make sense when you try to localize it, but it's really good and useful if you try to see, is there an aspect of the topic that it might actually make sense? Because the fact that nobody does it on the first page of Google doesn't mean that nobody is actually looking for it. It might mean that this is your 20% opportunity to add something new. And from my experience, if you cover 80% of what is already there and you add something new, you have better chances of getting like to perform way faster and outperform even like more difficult websites to win over, which is really, really good. And this is an example again. You've done your search analysis, you checked your top ranking pages, you did your topic analysis to find this extra twist, like of what else can I add? And then, for example, for best flooring for dogs or for pets or pet-friendly flooring, you should have something that looks like this. Now, all of these words are not just relevant words that I gathered from like brainstorming or from tools. I manually found them and I saw a clear pattern of how they appear. And then I know that this is what I basically need to do on my blog. This is what I need to include. You have scratches, paw prints, you have flooring options, type of flooring, resistant, waterproof, all that. And again, now, how do you take that in action and you actually implement it? You really need to communicate that to the writer. Writers generally ignore briefs, no matter if you make them like short, if you make them long, if you make them very detailed. I like always to adapt my briefs to the writers, but this is one thing that I always tell them, along with the anchor text that I'm going to discuss a little in a bit. They need to make sure that you include these terms. Like they need to include that. They need to make sure that because this is what Google expects to find as a high probability when you write content around the topic. So you need to make sure that these terms are included. And then if the content is written well, they should fit naturally and shouldn't feel like we are using them just to use them. And this takes us back to every word counts. This is a piece of text that I wrote back in the day. It actually gave me my first SEO job because nobody would hire me because I was not a native speaker and I didn't have experience and all that. So I created a blog. I wrote this blog post and then I published it and I stole a feature snippet from TripAdvisor. And I went to an interview. I was supposed to talk about feature snippets, and instead I went to the interview with a feature snippet. And this is what actually gave me my first SEO job. And the thing here, I'm really, really bad in creativity. Like I don't like copywriting. I cannot do creative writing. Like I can organize, optimize all that, but writing creative content, like I don't do that. So I wrote this one by using all these techniques. And then I wrote, like, for example, let's see here, it's Edinburgh is not just bagpipers, tartan and tourist attractions, built over multiple layers. There are snippets of history and hidden gems in every corner. Walk from the bottom of Royal Mile and the Queen's Palace of Holyrood House straight to the top where Edinburgh Castle sits upon Castle Rock, etc., etc. All these words, they were chosen specifically for this specific article. Like even what I featured there, the Holyrood Palace and the Queen's Gallery, the Edinburgh Castle, the Royal Mile closes, the Mary King's Close, the Advocates Close, all of that, I chose them because I analyzed the patterns of what was coming on the first page of Google, and then I didn't use the usual. I didn't do like the usual like list of everyone. I just did the 80-20. It actually got the feature snippet from TripAdvisor. And it was one blog in one website. That was back in the day. It was easier back then to do that. I don't think that this can be done now with all the algorithm updates, but it worked. Every single word in this article was chosen specifically for that. And nobody actually pays attention to the details, but they work well. Because again, it's how Google, it's words that Google is using to understand what you're trying to say, and it goes with the probabilities. So if you tick all the boxes of this is what is the most relevant, and you have it, and then you add this new twist, it works really well. It goes really, really nice with the performance and how fast the content appears on the results. And then the structure part of it is making sure that there is cohesion in the sentence level, coherence in the article level. You have clear representation of relations through words. So I see a lot of writers don't do that anymore, but make sure that they use indicators of contrast, like however, because, thus, first, finally, in order to, you need to make sure that you communicate this different relationship between your arguments and what you're trying to explain in the article. Like, how did you end up with, if you do this, then this is going to happen in a plumbing maintenance website, or why you have to do it. These things is what Google is using to understand your content. So you need to make sure that these words are included because they define the content, and it helps the algorithms and the search engines to better understand what you're trying to say. And then also be good enough to function as standalone pieces of knowledge, but also fit well as part of a bigger piece. This is very important. My idea is always that the metadata, if you just have the meta title and the meta description, you need to be able to understand straight away what the article is about, even without reading it, just with the meta title and the meta description. Then you go to the header structure. If I remove all the paragraphs and I just have the headers, am I able to understand what the content is about? If not, just tell the writer to do the headers again, or do it yourself. Then you have the headers and the paragraph. You know how Google now, if you click on a search result, it doesn't necessarily take you to the top of the page. It might take you to the bottom or somewhere that is causes or fixes or how to prevent it. You need to make sure that if you take a piece of your text with the header and you take it out, let's say as in a feature snippet, does it make sense? Just by reading the header and the content, am I going to be able to fully understand and get the answer to my question, how to fix a slab leak by myself? Or what are the causes, how to prevent it, or something like this. So you need to make sure that everything works together well, alone, but also they fit together in the text, the cohesion and coherence. Clear text goal, clear understanding, and that's something that is really important that I have found that works really, really well, is use optimized anchor text to structure and organize the topic clusters. What I mean by that, this is what I always say, this is my feedback to all the writers. If all the content is removed and only your anchor text remains, am I going to be able to tell what the linking page is about? I've seen writers adding links to random words or to sentences that they don't have the keyword, things like that. I want to be able to tell what the linking page is about just by looking at the anchor text. And am I going to be able, just by reading the anchor text, understand what the article that includes all the anchor text is talking about? So in this example, I have considered a utility bill audit to ensure accuracy, which is basically it's linking to a transactional service page. And then I have benefits of a utility bill audit, which links to a blog, hiring the right energy broker. Not all energy brokers are created equal, how to negotiate with energy suppliers. Just by that, you can tell. And again, you need to make sure that all these anchor texts, they fit naturally, they are not spammy, or you're not just doing it just to do it. And if you read this blog, specifically this one, just by reading the anchor text, it's like different headers. You can still understand how they go, how it actually, you can tell what is the context around it. Another example here with AC short cycling. And now remember how algorithms use the words before and after in term, and the structure and the context to better understand the search query. So basically optimized anchor text with strong contextual cues and keyword targeting variations, they really help the pages to get indexed faster, and they boost the optimized pages performance more dramatically. What I've seen is that I try, when I link to one page from other pages, to variate this anchor text. It's more or less the same in the same topic, but I try to highlight the different aspects of this page, especially if you are linking to a pillar page with different things like prevention, signs, how to fix it, all that, and what to do. And it actually helps a lot for the page to get faster, to get indexed really fast, and to see the lines going up really fast, like clicks and impressions, etc. And this is top tile flooring trends. That's another blog. This is just anchor text I took from there, linking to other relevant pieces of content. And as you can see, just by reading this, you can tell what the article is about. So that's also really good. All of these blogs, they work really well for the clustering. And now try to take that from the word to the paragraph to the page to the website level. And then you have something like that. It's including all the terms that Google thinks that you should be including, and then this is what the users would expect to find. And the last part is why AI is not going to be replacing the content writing just yet. It's because it's really complex. We have, in language, we have cognition, culture, meaning, linguistic context, social context, language in use, evolution, figurative language. Ask ChatGPT to write poetry. I mean, I think that in some years it might even like win a prize or something, but right now it's not, because it's very difficult. It's many different levels of analysis. And now think about how language acquisition versus language learning works, like how children learn to speak and how we try to learn a language, a second language, like that we put effort, we read vocabulary, like grammar and all that. Like ChatGPT and the rest, they can learn a language and they do mistakes. Sometimes they do funny mistakes, they become memes on LinkedIn and all that, but they actually do mistakes that are very similar to mistakes that children do when they're learning a language, when they're acquiring a language. And they're very similar to mistakes that non-native speakers like me, we do when we learn a language. So it is learning. As newer versions coming out, these programs will evolve their abilities to learn. And the challenge now is how we can generate content that is basically coherent, cohesive, and marks all these attributes that make content good, be it from ChatGPT or not ChatGPT. I know that we saw like yesterday presentations about how you can change the question on ChatGPT, you can feed it with the right structure and all that. But the thing is, right now, there are so many different factors at play when you try to create content that it's good and cohesive and coherent, but I don't think that it can tick all the boxes. But it will learn because it's evolving and it's learning. That's pretty much all. I don't know if you have any questions. Yes.
I think you should pitch this presentation to every single SEO conference. Gold.
Thank you. Anyone else? No?
There's a slide you had, many slides ago, about like pass and fail. There was like half categories in there.
Let me go back.
That would go, that was that cohesion. Could you, with the right prompt, go into ChatGPT or OpenAI or Claude or whatever, and ask you to classify the text, like does it pass cohesion, does it pass whatever, accessibility? Could you potentially do that and feed it back into?
I think yes. I think yes. But again, with these things, I think that you also like what it is that make text coherent. Like think of poetry, that sometimes it's not coherent, it is not cohesive, but it makes sense, no? So I feel that that's why that takes us back to like, can ChatGPT actually do that in the sense of can it, and like, how can it evaluate it? I think that's why in the end of the day, you need to have the human touch, like you need to have a human evaluating, because think about some text, like some pieces of content from Medium that they don't target any keywords, that they are like really badly optimized. They have like 6 paragraphs of text without a header, no links. It's like they speak like really generically and all that, but they still perform for the keyword you are trying to perform with your super well optimized content. So I think ChatGPT can do it, but again, what is cohesion and coherence? How do you evaluate it exactly? How do you put it into a framework and say, this is exactly what is coherent, and this is what makes sense in a piece of content? I think it can, but you just need to ask a lot of questions, I think, and that's it.
So, like, before that, how would you, like, I have no idea if I read something that kind of makes sense to me, but I'm very biased because maybe I wrote it, of course, it's the best piece of content. But how do you ensure it has to be, what do we do reading ChatGPT to make sure that what the writer gives us, is there an editor that could go in there? Or
well, you review the content and you provide the feedback to the writer. I think I was a teacher of languages. Like I studied linguistics, all that. I can read the piece of content. I was like assessing students' essays, and I could see these things. Like I could tell that this is not cohesive, this is not coherent. Like an SEO person, it's also common sense, because they are the blog posts that we do. They are not like academic essays. They are not like complicated pieces of essays or something. Like, does it make sense? Like what the writer wrote? After you read the article of the writer, like, do you know what he was trying to say? Did you find answers to your questions? And then what I always ask the writer is, if you read that, like, are you actually going to read your own article? Are you going to spend time reading it? Or are you going to just say that, no, like I just wrote it and it's boring. So I think for the type of blogs and content that we SEO people do, it's just common sense, really. Like if it's clear, the answer on the question of the user, if you cover the topic and if they follow the right structure, basically. So I would say it's common sense. Like if by the end of the article, you feel that it's clear on what it was trying to achieve. Awesome.
I just wanted to add to that it really helps when we're reviewing content to put yourself in the shoes of the audience.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's the end goal, right? That's what we tell ChatGPT. This is your audience, this is your tone. So think like, if I were a homeowner and I asked this question, would I read, those top 2 paragraphs? probably not. It's like when you go to a recipe and you're like, there's always nonsense. So like,
Yeah.
but, and obviously sometimes that's hard when it's like a medical device, something, and you're like, I don't know what that is, but in most cases, think, am I the audience? Am I reading this? Does this make sense? Yes or no? Absolutely.
What's funny is like stories work when you do an eBay description, right? Because
Yeah.
you add emotion to it. But this, it doesn't. That's what this is trying to do here. But usually when people do doing searches, they just want it really quick.
Exactly. Yeah. There is space for everything like in this, but not in all the blogs, for example. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Tell me. Sorry.